Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and for almost a decade, I have been a transformation coach and therapist. This podcast is all about lifting the veil of consciousness and awakening to the truth. It is also about helping you to raise the bar in all areas of your life and relationships by starting with you. If you're ready to take back your personal power and reclaim your life, you have come to the right place. I'm so glad that you're here, so let's get started with today's episode. My goal in this podcast and in my program, my social media, everything that I post is about offering a little bit of a different perspective than you might be seeing all over the interwebs about the narcissist. I have tried really hard to not fall into that mainstream narrative around it. I find a lot of it kind of annoying, and I know sometimes it's what women want to read is about like what the narcissist is doing, and it is important to have the educational aspects of the cycle and the behaviors, and I think I've done a good job. I'd like to think of sharing that here on the podcast in a way that still empowers you to not feel like a victim. And again, it's not about saying you have not been victimized unknowingly. It's about no longer feeling like a victim and taking your power back. That is what I have endeavored to do with everything I post. I think, how is this going to empower someone, a woman that's reading this, to feel like, okay, I have options here. I have things I can do. This isn't hopeless for me. That doesn't mean that you can change them, but it's you change you, and you realize like, I am the one that's going to come and save me. No one is going to come and save me. This is all on me. This is up to me. I'm 100% responsible. And I talk more about that in a recent episode, taking 100% ownership, the ownership principle. It's about not feeling like a victim, feeling like everyone's doing everything to me. And we can all fall into that at times, for sure. Life can really just get you down and keep slamming you down. And more things keep happening that make it feel difficult, for sure. But I've always taken the stance that there's always something I can do. So for me, recently figuring out I have a medical issue that could be, I don't know, it could involve surgery or involve something down the road. It's going to be months for me to get in to see someone that would be able to offer me what my treatment options are. And I had a physician that basically was no help, as most of them are not. I don't have a lot of faith in medical doctors. Yes, they're great for medical emergencies, surgeries, maybe like certain testing or things like that. Most blood tests and other types of testing you can get done at naturopaths nowadays. You have to pay for it. But yes, of course, we need our doctors for emergency procedures, and there's aspects to it, of course, that they offer. But naturopaths offer a bit of a different perspective because they see where maybe we can strengthen the body here, we can support the body here to come back into balance, or maybe there's other options. And so anytime I've had a health issue, I try to take it from a multidimensional approach. So I still do like refer to my MD and have them and take their input, and then I take their input and I check in with myself, and then I start doing some of my own reading and research. I start to find books and work with different types of health practitioners. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I have always had that mindset of like, I'm feeling defeated, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling a little bit hopeless or powerless in this because I can't control how fast I can get in to see someone. I can't control a lot of things my body's doing right now. So what can I control instead of feeling anxious and worried and all this? So I want you to really, and I invite you to adopt that approach in this situation. There's a lot of things you can't control externally. So where are you going to put that control? So for me, I'm going to really work on the mental, emotional aspects connected to the health issue. And I'm going to start really tightening up how I'm eating and get into more Chinese medicine healing herbs, and, still use some medical approaches along the way. But I'm also looking at it holistically. And this is what I want you to look at your situation from a holistic standpoint, that it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And everything I teach is based on that. We deal with all of that in my program. It's what are you doing on a holistic level for you? and it's building yourself up. So what I see with women that I work with is that they are pouring so much life force energy into a dead-end relationship that's not feeding them. And so we end up with these like gynecological issues, the root chakra issues. This is very common in women who have experienced abusive relationships, or just relationships that feel like they're not going anywhere, they're one-sided, they're draining, they don't offer anything of any pouring back to you. You're just draining your life force. This is also an adrenal fatigue thing. So it's important to look at your physical health and look at all areas of your life. And this is something I'm really passionate about, and I am just getting back into it again because of this current situation. And so I'm going to be infusing this more into my programming and the coaching calls. Like, we need to look at ourselves and our lives as a whole. Everything affects everything. Your relationship with you affects everything. So if you don't have a solid relationship with yourself, and you're not taking really good care of you, and you are spending way too much time and energy trying to change them, fix them, get them to see the light, micromanaging, really just tracking everything they're doing and obsessing and ruminating, and you're up all night anxious, how is that serving anyone? It's not. So the more you get into that, the less health you're going to have, and the more health issues you're going to have. And so when we can look at our lives as a whole, that everything is interconnected and everything affects the whole. So when one thing is out of place, it knocks the others out of place. So looking at your life as a whole, and I have women do this as soon as they come into the program, is look at their lives from that way and kind of do a self-diagnosis and create a plan for themselves for how to start putting themselves at the forefront in their lives, because they've been putting their relationship ahead of everything else. And so when you feel like your relationship is better than nothing because your life is really nothing, like maybe you don't have enough going on that's filling you and feeding you, or you don't have people in your life that are nourishing, or you have more draining stuff going on than nourishing, when you're not putting yourself first, when you're not making time for rituals and self-care and feminine practices, then that lower chakra, the root chakra issues start to show up for women. And this is true when you're going into perimenopausal years and all of that. So this is something I have always been passionate about. This podcast, if you were to scroll down to the very, very first episodes, when I first started the podcast, when I was in a holistic counseling practice, like my practice was a holistic based counseling. So a lot of my very early episodes are all about this: mind, body connection, adrenal fatigue, hormones, emotional eating, all of that. So if that's something that interests you, definitely you have to scroll way back to find those. But it is something I'm still very passionate about talking about. And that doesn't mean that everything can be solved without surgery. I'm coming to a place, like I used to be very adamant against medical procedures, and I don't like to go that route. I'm not on any drugs. I've never been on any pharmaceutical drugs. I don't like to take them. I try to avoid any type of surgeries. But this may end up being something down the road I'm going to have to accept, right? And so just working through that reality. But in the meantime, I am going to do everything in my power to put my body in a position to hopefully come back into balance on its own. So I encourage you to look at this as well. Like, look at your life as a whole and just do a little self-inventory of like, how healthy am I? How happy am I? And looking at the direct relationship between your health and what's going on in your relationship and what's happened in your past, any past trauma and abuse you've experienced, all of it affects the whole. All of it is in our cells. It's in our bodies. It's in our muscles. It's in our tissues, right? Everything we've experienced is there. Everything our mother experienced is there. And as you go through similar things that maybe you had your mom go through, it brings up some of those visceral feelings that you can't quite put your finger on, because it's like, I feel like I'm going through now what my mom went through in some areas, right? So it's looking at everything, how it's all intricately connected. I think I said that right. And how when one aspect of our life is off balance, it knocks the others like dominoes, one after the other off balance. So when your mind is off balance, it affects the emotions. When the emotions are off balance, it affects the physical. And then when the physical is impacted, it affects our mental health if we're not careful, because we can get really spun out in the minutia of a health issue, or maybe having troubles because you don't feel well, or you're fatigued or tired, or you have migraines or bad periods or pain of some kind. There's just so many different ways to lose track and be focusing on the physical that takes us away from the emotional. So there's that aspect too, is the idea that all illness comes to us, or any medical condition comes to us, as a lesson. I like to believe that. So these are all ways we can take an empowered approach. So if you can use this in your life and in your relationship as a catalyst for your growth, to see the relationship you're in as a catalyst for your growth rather than your demise, right? Like how can you grow from this? Like, what am I learning in this? And start taking ownership of your own state, how you take care of yourself. It matters. How you take care of yourself builds the relationship for you, to you, with you. And that sets the foundation for how you allow others to treat you. So I was talking to ETC member, and she was saying how she knows her relationship is bad, but we kind of got into it more and just boiled it down to like, this is better than nothing. And so instead of succumbing to that thought, we came up with a plan for her to fill her life in ways so that no longer feels like the case. If you feel like a relationship is better than nothing, it means you have nothing to be excited about. You have nothing in your life that's all about you. Your sense of self is not there. So you need to build that up with boundaries and practices and self-worth and self-care and rituals, and taking better care of yourself, filling your life with other things. Again, looking at the holistic approach and where you are neglecting areas of yourself. And you take ownership for that. It's not even your spouse's responsibility. If we don't have that within ourselves first, no man is going to come along and give that to us. Heck, that's a recipe for disaster. You have to be able to own it and take care of it. And any relationship is just a support or an icing on the cake or a nice addition, right? It's not the thing that keeps you happy and surviving, and if it's gone, then you're lost and your life is over. We don't want that. So let's build you up now so that if and when the time comes that you are leaving, you're prepared. You have a plan. You already have that solid self-care foundation, and you've got the supports around you. You understand the challenges that are going to be ahead of you, so you can best take care of yourself. If you have health issues, yes, I recognize that this makes navigating this seem impossible at times. I've been there. And just because you leave doesn't mean that there won't be residual effects to your health. It might improve a lot of things with your mental health and just your day-to-day peace and settledness and contentedness. But if you've lived in something for years or decades, it's going to take a toll on your health. And some of those things aren't easily resolved. There might be repercussions that will stay with you, because things like hormone imbalances from the stress, those are a long time coming, and they're not super easy to correct, especially when you're in that chronic stress and traumatic stress all the time. So yeah, you have to get yourself out of that, but it doesn't mean that everything's going to be roses on the other side. You have to be prepared. Don't underestimate the difficulty that will lie ahead. And so that's where you need to make sure you are able to support yourself and have the right support around you. So if you'd like to learn more on this and the 5 mistakes that women make before leaving a narcissistic relationship, I have a video that is free. It's about a 15-minute video where I go over the 5 mistakes I see women making before they leave, so that you can hopefully avoid those. And the link will be in the show notes for you to get that. It will be instant access in your inbox as soon as you sign up. And I go over those top 5 mistakes that I see. Of course, there's lots more, but boiling it down to the 5 that I see most commonly. And hopefully you can avoid making those yourself. So go ahead and check that link in the show notes. And the other notice I have is that End the Cycle is open right now for enrollment. And you can click the link in the show notes to get inside. If you go into the master or the class that I have just mentioned, there is special fast action bonus at the end of that class that is only available for a limited time. So if you want to go that route, you can do that and take advantage of that. If you're listening to this after the fact and that isn't available, the link to register will still be available so that I cover all the bases, because obviously who knows when you'll be listening to this episode. All right, so that is what I wanted to share with you today. I hope it inspires you to consider taking a look at your life as a whole. And if you want some help with really looking at all these pieces with a coach, with someone that gets it, with professional education and training and experience, you can join us inside the group. All right, take care. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with me for this episode. If you love this content and want more, make sure to follow Awakening Women Support on Instagram and Facebook for daily posts and inspiration. Also, make sure to join our brand new podcast discussion community on Telegram. Simply click the link in the show notes and it will take you right there. If you love the show, please take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review in the iTunes app. I so appreciate it. And I will chat with you again on the next episode. Take care.